Hey everybody. So I'm gonna try doing like, instead of writing a journal, like do a video kind of thing and just share it out there for other moms who struggle with postpartum depression like I have. So a little background is, it took me 5 years to get pregnant, over 5 years to get pregnant. I have endometriosis. I had my first surgery on 11/11/2014 after it took me quite a few years to talk an OB into believing me that I had endometriosis. Most would just were like, let me shove birth control in your body, let me test you for STDs because that makes sense. Because the pain, I don't know how they correlate STDs and endometriosis pain, but I want to say it was like 3 separate OBs. Their first thing they wanted to do was test me for STDs. What does that do to your mental state? I'm coming to you, you're a professional, and the first thing you bring up is STDs. When I'm married and faithful. I felt like trash, embarrassed. And that's why I fired those OBs. I said. And I found one who saw me in my crippling pain. And she said, let's do a laparoscopic surgery, diagnostic. And I'm going to explore and we'll see what we find. And if I find any endo, I'm going to burn it, which is called ablation. Girls, don't do it. My endo, I woke up from the surgery feeling a lot of relief, so I knew that she had found something in there and took it out. And when I opened my eyes, I almost cried from the happiness of the relief I felt. I could feel the difference in my body, that something was removed that was like a spider web and holding everything together inside and causing so much pain and discomfort. And she said, yep, your stage 3 endometriosis. It was on the outside of your uterus, your colon, your bladder. It was so intricate on my bladder that she was too scared to try to get it because she was still learning about the disease. And I understand that and I respect her so much and I'm so thankful for her because she believed me and she diagnosed me. I can't tell you how many times I ended up in the ER for pain and they just treated me like a drug addict. I didn't have any health insurance, so I had to go to the ER. When I was in crippling pain, my husband would literally carry me in because I couldn't walk, I couldn't move. I was so bloated, I was in excruciating pain. And they just right away treat you like a drug addict. We've got to stop the stigma out there. Just because someone is coming in repeatedly for pain and you think it's just for drugs, you're being biased, you're being prejudiced. It's like you're guilty before you're proven innocent, which is not how the world is supposed to work. And so fast forward to my doctor up here. Sorry, there's something bothering me on my phone. Anyway, I'm very anxious. So once I found him, he looked through my file and I was back to having like excruciating pain. It had been less than a year since my first lap. It was growing back rapidly and I was having excruciating pain on my left ovary. So when they did an ultrasound, I had an 8.5 centimeter, let me repeat, 8.5 centimeter chocolate cyst on my left ovary. So he immediately put me on birth control to kind of like every day. I wasn't allowed to have a period. And it was to help kind of shrink up that mass since it was endo driven, which is driven by estrogen in your body. And most birth control is made of what? Estrogen or progesterone. So my body with endometriosis has too much estrogen, which could have been from growing up and drinking tap water because when they pee in toilets, they pee out their birth control, which is estrogen or progesterone. Most birth controls are estrogen based, and what people use because it's stronger at holding off the cycle. But then that goes through the septic system and gets refiltered into our drinking water. And yeah, I know, gross, right? So in tap water, there's estrogen. Don't believe me? Do your research. But so basically growing up drinking tap water, you know, pumping my body full of extra estrogen, that could be a cause. But my mother had it, so I'm thinking it's hereditary. I don't know if they've really linked that yet. They're still researching endometriosis, the causes. There's no cure. But back to my second lap with Dr. Stuart Jones of Matern, Ohio. He is amazing. I've had probably 8 women switch from their OBs to him because he's so amazing. His bedside manner is phenomenal. He truly cares about his patients, and he's a specialist with endometriosis and excision surgery. So when I got to the point that I was having flare-ups, is what you call it, when like your belly gets really big and you look like you're pregnant and you can't move and it feels like barbed wire that's set on fire is wrapped around your insides. I mean, it was to the point where just stool moving through my intestines was crippling. I had to eat soft food because I didn't want to feel that pain. My husband had to pull my underwear down for me because I couldn't bend down far enough from the pain. I literally would be laying on the couch for 5 days minimum, not being able to move, with a heating pad on my belly. It's hard. It's a very hard disease. But I've had the lap. My cat is eating my hand. I had my second lap successfully. He was able to save my left ovary from the chocolate cyst, and he had me do the Lupron Depot. I did that for 4 months. That was hard because it gave me pericarditis of the heart as a symptom, and I had like the worst diarrhea every day, all day for the entire 4 months. Just like no matter what I ate, it was just straight through me. But I put up with that because I knew my chances of conceiving without doing this drug were low. So I did that for 4 months, and then our insurance company like had a hiccup, and my husband got back from the military, and TRICARE just screwed up, and we paid for it basically. And so I only did 4 months, and then the next thing I know, I'm 8 weeks pregnant and in shock because I didn't believe it, and I thought I just had the flu, and everyone's like, no, you're pregnant, you look green, that's different than the flu. Finally took a pregnancy test and it said positive, and my world stopped. Like, I was so elated and in shock. Let's fast forward though to post-birth. When I was about 7 months pregnant, I lost my grandma, and she was my rock. I called her almost every day and talked to her on my way home from work, and she didn't judge me. She listened. She supported me no matter what. She knew everything about me and loved me completely. She knew all my secrets and still loved me. And I went to see her on Christmas Eve, 2016. Drove all the way up to Worcester. It's about an hour and a half away from my home. I made sure to drive up once a month to visit her. And the next thing I know, I get a call the day after Christmas saying she died. And that's when my depression started. But I also still was excited to have my son, that she was supposed to be there in the delivery room. She was one of the people I picked. Anyway, So I gave birth to my first son, and I was so happy, but there was this darkness inside my head, and I tried to fight it naturally. I did exercise, I ate better, but it wasn't enough. And it got to the point where I was crying all the time, and I felt like I was failing as a mother, crying in the kitchen while my son was crying in the other room because I just couldn't take the sound of it anymore, and I felt guilty for that. And finally my husband was like, I know you're trying not to take medicine and I don't know why. Duh, the stigma out there. He goes, but you're making an appointment tomorrow for your doctor and you're gonna tell him how sad you are because I don't like you like this. I don't like seeing you this upset. It's okay to take medication. I finally opened up to him about 8 months into my postpartum. I mean, it was pretty clear I had it, but I didn't talk about it because nobody talks about it. Because you're ashamed. You feel bad for having bad thoughts when you should be happy because you took over 5 years to get pregnant and you have this beautiful boy and you're just sad. And you feel weak and tired. And it's so draining to put on a fake face and smile and pretend you are this absolutely happy mom when you just feel like curling up in a ball in the dark and crying all the time. So that's when I started Zoloft. With my primary care doctor, he recommended Zoloft. I started out on the low dose of 50 milligrams and worked my way up to about 150 due to needing more. And then I was doing better. I was getting exercise. I still had some negative thoughts here and there, but I was doing better. And then when my son was 14 months old, we found out we were expecting baby number 2. Yes, we did not realize it was not going to take another 5 years. Dr. Jones greatly fixed me because my husband was fine. He got tested. There was nothing wrong with him. It was me. And then I fell pregnant with Charlie and found out on Mother's Day of 2018 that I was pregnant again. And then I was so happy and worried to go through the pregnancy on Zoloft, even though it's supposed to be safe. I wanted to just wean myself off of it and try to get through the pregnancy without it. That was a horrible idea. So I weaned myself off, and I can't tell you how much I cried and cried and cried and cried with my pregnancy. Like, everything made me cry. Like, even like my phone not working right made me cry. And so I pushed through, and I got to the point where I was about 32 weeks, and I was like, I cannot take this anymore. And I talked to my doctor, and he's like, yes, you can, my OB, he's like, yes, you can start back up on Zoloft. So I did. I was like, okay, I want to be able to give birth to my second son and not have postpartum like I did before, right? Preventative. Like, I'll be on Zoloft before I have him, and then it'll be great, right? Wrong. So even though I tried to be preventative, I had Charlie, and he's glorious. He's amazing. But the postpartum was stronger this time. And I've been fighting it every day for the last 9 months. And I've had so many suicidal thoughts that I wasn't telling anybody about and just faking my happiness. And that is exhausting, pretending you're okay all day because you're afraid to show people your true colors. You're afraid to talk about your thoughts. You think people are gonna think you're crazy because that's the stigma out there. You're not crazy. You are not crazy. Let me tell you again, you are not crazy. We don't have control of the chemicals in our brain. So that's why they made medicine. Exercise, yoga, eating healthy isn't enough for some people. It may be enough for some people out there, but not everybody. So I got into a really dark place, like verbalized one night to my husband, well, why, we were arguing. My depression caused us to argue a lot. It's hard on your significant other too. Watching you go through it and not knowing how to help you is hard on them. And you know that. So then you feel resentment because you're causing more stress on your spouse, and then it's just hard. And finally one night I said, why don't I just kill myself so you and the boys can live without me? And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm so sorry, that was a thought. Like, that was one of my bad thoughts. I don't really want to die. I'm not suicidal. I want to live. I have suicidal thoughts. Negative thoughts in my mind that I battle and I tell no. I would be driving to work stressed about money and life, and my thoughts were, is life really worth all this stress? Is it worth it? I hear my son coming, so we will continue this conversation later. Postpartum depression.